Our next square for the Debbie Bliss knit along is this really cute reindeer. Now the reindeer is worked using the Intarsia technique, which involves carrying the yarn around certain different areas of the motif. I've got a couple here for you to see. It's a really good skill to learn, a great technique, so I hope you enjoy it. Let's get started. The next motif we have for the winter blanket knit along is this gorgeous little reindeer. Now, when we first sort of started looking at these motifs, we thought that this would be the one that we could show you Intarsia with. But it's not all Intarsia, so let's just have a look at this motif. So when you're working this bit down here, this can be done with Fair Isle, because what I wanted to show you was that not every single motif or picture, shall we say, on anything that you work in the future, it's not necessarily going to be all one technique. So for example, here, this little section here of the reindeer can be done with Fair Isle, and the antlers can be done with Fair Isle. But what happens when you get up here and you need to change colour, and then you've got a big area of a block colour? It's too big to have a float that runs from here to here, so this isn't going to work with Fair Isle. So we're going to use for this middle section a technique called Intarsia, and it's fantastic for making pictures in your knitting where there is a big chunk of colour. And so if you're working on a picture that has lots of big chunks of colour, Intarsia is going to be best. And then if you've got only a little bit of space between things, Fair Isle is going to be best. So what I've done is I've started off already with the reindeer, working the bottom section of the reindeer with Fair Isle, which we've done already with the snowflake. And so we've just got to the stage where I'm going to start row 9, which is the beginning of the reindeer's body, and it's just too big for a float. So let's have a go at row 9 and see about the Intarsia method. So at the moment, this is what I've got connected. I have got the ball of the teal colour, and I've got the ball of white, which is our contrast. So on this next row, I'm going to work the 3 stitches here for our garter stitch border. Then I've got 2 squares of teal, and then I've got this big run of white yarn, and then a lots more teal the other side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to knit the 3 and these 2, change colour for white and work along here. But then I'm going to introduce a new strand of teal to work this side, because it's just too far to carry from there to there. So let's start 3 stitches here for our garter stitch border. Then, and remember, we're working from right to left because we're on a right side row. This is row 9. And then I'm going to knit these 2 teal squares. Now, because I've got the white yarn already here, I'm going to pick that up. But to stop it from leaving a hole, because we're not going to be carrying the yarn across, when you work in Intarsia, the important thing is to twist your yarns. And this ensures that there will be no holes. So I'm just going to get these 2 and twist them around. So I'm twisting the white under the teal there. And now I'm going to knit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now, as we've come across his body there, this is just too far to take the teal. So I've got another little ball of teal over the other side. So I'm going to attach that. And I'm just going to put my needle in, and I'm just going to use a long piece of teal on this side. Just measure out a nice long piece and take the loop. So we have that needle into the stitch, pop the loop over and make the stitch. Now, to carry on with this and make sure that there isn't a hole, I'm going to take this piece of teal yarn and I'm going to wrap it around the white. And doing that will ensure, like that, that there's not going to be a hole here. So twisting your yarn around is the way that we work in Intarsia to make sure that we don't get any holes. So I'm going to use this extra piece of teal that I've attached to work all the way along, and this will take us right to the end. I'll just show you that row, right to the end of the row 9, because we've got no other white yarn that way. So I'm going all the way back, and the last 3 for the garter stitch border. And remember, I was saying when we work Fair Isle, it's really important to keep your work stretched out so that you don't end up with a puckered image. Same is true of Intarsia. So Intarsia is where we attach a new strand of colour or a new ball of colour for each section. Right, so the next row we have is row 10, which is a wrong side row, so we're on the wrong side, and we have 3 stitches to knit here for our garter stitch border, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, which will get us, we need 8 teal stitches before we change to the contrast yarn. So using the extra bit of teal that I attached in the middle, so now we have a float over here, we have the ball of white and the ball of teal. So I'm now going to knit 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3, which is our garter stitch border, bringing the yarn round to the front, and we're going to work this row here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8 stitches purl in teal, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now that we're back here to the 8, we're going to change to our white yarn to work this run of stitches here. And in order to do it and not leave a hole, I'm going to take my teal float and I'm going to twist it around the white yarn. So it comes right out the way. So the white yarn is twisted, you see that there, twisted around the teal, so that when I work these new stitches, there's not going to be any kind of hole there. So now I'm going to work that first one, pick up the white yarn which was dangling up the back, 1, 2, and you can just see that there's a little bit of a loose wire there. That's just the float of the piece of teal that we attached, and it can look a bit like spaghetti junction, but it looks worse on the video. I promise you, when you're doing this, it'll be an awful lot clearer because it'll be right in front of you. So we have 1, 2, let's how many have we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Keeping it nicely spread out. So there we've come to the end of our 8 stitches, and then we have 3 teal ones to take us to the end of the row. Well, we have attached on here the ball of teal that's already attached at the back here. So I'm going to pick up this teal, and to avoid losing, making a hole, we're going to twist the teal and the white together. So I'm going to twist this teal around the white, and then I'm going to work 3 stitches using the teal. 1, 2, 3, those purl stitches, and then I'm going to take the yarn round to the back to knit the last 3 garter stitches. 1, 2, 3. So now we have our teal float up this end, which is just a strand on its own, and then the white and the teal that are attached to the ball down this end. Let's have a look at row 11. So row 11 is a right side row, so we're going to be working from right to left, and you can see the 11 there to make sure that we're on the right hand side on the right side of the work. So what we're going to do here is our 3 stitches for the border, and then 3 stitches of teal before we're changing back to white, or the contrast colour that you're using, to work along the back of the reindeer again. This time we're going to work along here with the white, then we've got 2 teal, back to the white, and then a little bit more teal. So let's see how we're going to cope with that when we get there. So let's start. Always making sure that you're keeping your little reindeer nice and stretched out. Now, one of the things I did before I started this row, and this is really important to get into doing, is that every couple of rows untangle any of your floats and balls so that you've got everything sitting neatly and nicely behind you. What can happen is that when you've got lots of different colours, you've got to really be mindful of not getting too tangled, and stop and start every row or so, every couple of rows, make sure that nothing is tangled up. So we do 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3, and then that's our garter stitch border. We have 3 stitches of teal, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 white stitches. So I'm going to knit 3 in teal, 1, or mallard actually. And now we're going to change to the white yarn. I'm going to grab the white yarn from behind, and because we're using the Intarsia technique to make sure that I don't get any holes, I'm going to twist the white yarn over the top of the teal like that, so that when I pick up this white yarn, it catches the teal neatly away in there. So we have 8 stitches, let's do that, 2, 4, 6, 7, 8. Let's just have a check here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, it's 9. 9 stitches. And now what we need to do is to change to teal for 2 stitches and then back to white. So I'm going to pick up, do you remember our little teal extra float that we have in the back here? There it is. I'm going to twist it around the white. 1, 2, so that it catches. Can you see that there? Catches neatly. And this is when it's really handy just to have some of the floats as one long strand, because it's easier not to get tangled. We're going to work 2 stitches in the teal there, and then we've got 2 stitches in white, so we're going to do that again this time I'm going to twist around, knit the 2 stitches in white, and I'm going to do it again with my long float, twist around again twice, and knit to the last 3 stitches. 1, 2, 3, and then we've got the 3 garter stitch. 2, 3. So let's turn it around and have a look at the back for row 12. Row 12 is a wrong side row, and let's just have a look at the wrong side so we can see what we've got attached. So this is the back of the work, the wrong side of the work, and you can see where the twists in our yarn, just twisting the colours together, has made sure that the yarns are tucked in and kept nicely, neatly together so that there are no holes. And you'll soon notice if you start to work Intarsia without twisting your yarns together, you will have big holes. And although it's not the end of the world, because you can go along afterwards and sew the back up, you obviously want to avoid that if you can. So twisting the yarns together as you go is the way that we avoid that. So row 12, we're coming back from left to right. There's the 12. We've got 3 in the teal, and then a great long run of the white yarn, and then a bit of teal over here. So what we do is we begin, and I've tidied up my ends again, so you can see here there's the ball of white, this is my getting shorter little float of teal, and this one is attached to the ball of teal over on my left hand side here. So you might find whenever you work these sort of things, it's quite intuitive. You need to add in floats whenever you need them. And we'll do that in a minute. So I'm going to start off by knitting 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3 for the garter stitch border. Then I'm going to bring the yarn around to the front as we work along here. So row 12, we need 1, 2, 3 teal stitches, and then we're going to switch to white. So I'm going to purl 3, 1, 2, 3. In a lot of ways, it's easier on the purl side here because you can see the twists and what you're doing. So here, if you remember which is here, in order to avoid a hole here, I'm going to twist this teal around the white. And you can see that little twist. And then pick up the white, and I'm going to purl with the white and just see how that's caught the teal neatly. I'm going to use this white now to purl along the back of the reindeer. And if I just stop there for a second to show you, I just pull that neatly down, but don't pull it tight. Always with colour work, pulling tight is the absolute death of the picture on the front. So you really need to be quite gentle. And if you know that you're a bit of a death grip knitter, if you pull your yarns, you really have to make a conscious effort. This is not about tension so much as deliberately holding things looser. So I'm going to work along the back of the reindeer. So where are we? We're coming up row 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 stitches. Let's have a look. Have a little count up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. And now, this is actually a very good point to illustrate what would happen if you didn't twist. If I carried on without twisting here, and I just purled the next stitch. Look at the size of the hole that would leave if we didn't twist these 2 yarns together. It's a big hole, isn't it? So here we have 3 stitches of teal, and then we're going to do our garter stitch. So to avoid a hole, grab the teal that we've got at the other end, which is connected to the ball. I'm going to twist that round twice. Going to purl 3 stitches, and then take the yarn to the back of the work to knit the little garter stitch border at the side. There. One of the things you can do if you find that the spaghetti junction at the back is really upsetting you is where you've got an end that you're not using anymore. So that was the loop of something, and there's one here. You can sew those ends in ahead of finishing so that you keep them out the way. And sometimes if you're working on something that's really complicated, it's good to sew in the loose bits as you go along, because then it really clears the view of what you're doing. So that is row 12. Let's have a look at row 13. I love the way this little reindeer is emerging into our teal. It's so cute. So row 13 is a right side row, and we're starting on the right side, and then we're working our way across the chart to the left. 13 is on the right hand side. So we're going to do our 3 garter stitches for the border, then we have 3 teal, and then we've got another long run of the contrast colour, which in my case here is white. So at this end of the work, I am still attached to the ball of yarn with teal, which is great. On the other hand, I have teal on this side, which is my little float, and I have the white yarn attached at the back here, also still attached to the ball. And before I've even knitted this row, before I've even started, I've stopped and untangled the yarn. So we begin with 1, 2, 3 for the garter stitch. Now we're going to work 3 knit stitches of the main colour, which in this case is teal. 1, 2, 3. And now we're going to change colour to the white. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 stitches across here in the white. Now here's another really good example actually of what would happen if you didn't twist the yarns. If I just carried on knitting here, can you see that great big gap underneath? That's what you'd end up with, a great big hole. So in order to avoid that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift the white yarn over, twist it. Can you see they're twisting underneath? Twisting the white yarn over the teal, there. And I'm going to carry on knitting with the white, nice and neatly, so that 1, 2, 3, we don't get any kind of hole. And I know this can look a bit disconcerting working on the camera because it's not right in front of you, but I promise when it's in front of you it will feel so much more intuitive. Let's see, so I think that's 12. And let's double check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So there we go. So we're up to here. Now I've got 4 stitches of teal to look at. The float that I attached before, this little extra bit of teal, is sitting here right in the right place. So in order to avoid the holes, I'm going to take the piece of teal and then twist it around. I always twist twice, just to be secure. Pick up the teal, now it's twisted, and then we're going to knit to the end. So knit to the last 3, and then the last 3 are knit stitches too, because that's your little garter stitch border. Oops, a little bit. There we go. All the time keeping this motif stretched out, because if you start to pull it around, you'll get puckering on this side. And although blocking can help an awful lot with that, so you can block out some of the puckering, not all of it. So it's important to make sure you keep that as nice and stretched out as you can. Let's turn it around to have a look. So before I even think about the next row, I'm going to untangle. But look where we are. You can see how the twists have happened up and down here, just to make sure that you haven't got any holes. And that's really nice and neat. Let's have a row 14. We're on a wrong side row for row 14. So when we've done our 3 garter stitches for the border, we're flicking onto purl because we're on the wrong side of the stockinette, the stocking stitch. We're going to have 2 teal purls, and then we're going to have 1 contrast stitch, 1 white, 2 more teal, 3 more white, and then we've got a big gap. So we're going to work this section, but because the tail over here is all on its own, it's going to be a bit of a long way to get the white to stretch all the way over here. So we're going to introduce another float to deal with this bit. So also my little float for the front here is running out, so we might have to change there as well. So I'm going to knit 3, 1, 2, 3, and then bring the yarn in front. We have 2 teal purl stitches, 1, 2, and then we've got 1 white stitch. So our little white float's not very far away. This is the white that's attached to the ball, and I've just freed up more of the white yarn. Always make sure you've got enough to unravel. We're going to just work 1 white stitch. Now, I'm just going to put my needle in there in order to secure it, but I'm going to take the teal and just wrap it twice around the white, just to make sure that we've got no holes, and then purl that, oops, hold that steady, purl the white stitch. Then I'm going to wrap the teal round again twice. This time grab the teal to work these next 2 stitches here. 2 purl stitches, 1, 2, and then we've got 3 white stitches. So I'm going to twist again, and this time grab the white yarn and work 3 white stitches, 1, 2, 3. Now, let's have a look. What we've got situation here is that we're going to need a bit more teal over this side, and actually the teal that's attached to the ball is way over here. So we're going to need another bit of teal to cope with this bit here. So I'm just going to grab another piece of teal yarn. There we go. And I'm going to attach that. So I'm just going to pop my needle into there. I'm going to take a loop, put it over and purl that. And then, just to make sure I'm not going to get any holes, I'm going to wrap the teal twice around the white. 1, 2. Move the white out of the way. pick up the teal, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 stitches with that. So I'm just going to work the teal yarn, 1, 2, and just keeping all those floats out of the way, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's taken us down the body neatly. And this is where things can get quite congested, because if you have got all sorts of different floats popping in at different times, and yours will be different to mine, you won't create exactly the same number of floats and lines as I have, because your yarn will be different lengths. But that's why it's an intuitive thing. If you realise that you haven't got enough yarn, you're going to have a great big float somewhere, that's when you've got to introduce a new piece of yarn. So I've worked the teal all the way along here, and we're ready now to introduce this little bit of tail. So I've got one little white stitch here, but the yarn for the white is just too far away to float it across. So I'm going to have to put in another little piece of white yarn. So I'm going to put my needle under, grab a piece of white yarn, put the loop over and purl it, and then I'm going to take my teal yarn here to purl these 2 stitches here, and I'm going to take the teal yarn, twist it twice around the white yarn. We're going to purl 2, 1, 2, and then bring the yarn round to the back to knit the last 3. So what I've got there is an extra little float just for the tail. So if you look at the back now, I have an extra little white float there for the tail, and a little bit of the teal that's attached to the ball. This is the white that's attached to the ball, and then also some teal float the other side left. So if I turn around, ready for row 15. So row 15, we're working from right to left, remembering that the 15 is on the right hand side, and this is a right side row, working from right to left across the chart. There's our little reindeer coming out nicely. So here we've got our 3 stitches of garter stitch, and then 2 stitches of teal, and then just 1 little stitch of white. And for that we can use, we've got a piece behind, a little float there, so we use that for the tail. Then we're going to work 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 stitches of teal, and then we're over here again with the white. So let's start that. So we've got 3 knit stitches for the border, then 2 stitches, and then we've got to change to have 1 white. So there's 2. Now we're going to knit this little white stitch, and remember we have the white yarn float behind. So I'm going to twist that, 1, 2. I always twist twice. Around there, grab the white yarn, and then use the white yarn to knit the stitch. And sometimes when it goes a little bit baggy like that, it's just the float that's coming a bit loose, so just very gently pull it to tighten. Got to be really gentle. And as we're coming across here some more, we're going to need lots of teal to come across here. So I'm actually going to look behind. I've got the teal that's attached to the ball. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to twist the white around it. There it is. 1, 2. Pick up the teal and use that to work along the top of the reindeer's back. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that's 3. And you notice that I am going backwards and forwards and counting every 5 minutes. And that's because you don't want to get that wrong. If you can use a piece of washi tape to go over the top of your rows, but I just like to be checking all the time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There we are. And then we've got one little white stitch there. And if we have a look at the back, there's the float that's attached to the ball. I'm going to twist that round the teal. 1, 2. And knit that stitch. And then we've got 2 teal stitches here. So I'm going to twist again. Twist the teal around twice this time. Knit 2 stitches. 1, 2. And then we've got 1 white stitch and the rest is teal. I'm going to take that white one again, twist it round twice. 1, 2. Knit that next stitch. Twist the teal again round twice to pick up the teal, just to work the last, where were we? Up there. The last 3 stitches before the garter stitch border. 1, 2, 3, and then 3 for the garter stitch border. Just keep that nicely stretched out. Now, there we can see little reindeer, and it's nice and flat. There's no puckering anywhere because we're keeping those floats nice and gentle and keeping the image stretched. So now we're on to row 16, which is a wrong side row. Let's have a look at that. So row 16 is a wrong side row, so we're working from left to right. And it begins with some teal, 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches of the main colour. Obviously I'm working in teal and white, you might not be. So your main colour, 4 stitches there. Then we're going to switch to the contrast, which in my case is a white yarn. Bit of contrast yarn back to the main colour and a little bit of the end of the tail there. So let's start. Now before I've started, I've just tidied up my yarns at the back so you can see. And just reviewing what I've got here, I've got a teal yarn that's attached to the ball, got a white yarn that's attached to the ball. Here I have a bit of teal float there, and these are ends. I've got a bit of a white float there, and that little white float will do these last 2 bits of the tail. And then I've got quite a long piece of teal float to pick up over here. So you might find you have different floats to me, but it's just important to keep an eye on what they're doing. And as I said previously, if it gets too much like spaghetti, sew in these ends that you're not going to use anymore, and that makes an amazing difference because then you really can see what you've got going on. So row 16, we're going to start off with 3 garter stitch stitches and then 4 purl stitches. So this is the teal that I've got attached to the ball. Just free that up a bit. So we knit 1, 2, 3. Now I'm going to take the yarn around to the front for the pearls, and we have 4 pearl stitches in teal. So I'm going to purl 4. There. Now to change over to the contrast, which is white for me, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I'm going to pick up the white yarn that's attached to the ball, and because I don't want a hole, I'm going to twist it twice. 1, 2, over the top of the teal, and lift it up, and then I'm going to use that for the 6 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's see. So there you can see I'm here. Now I've got 4 teal stitches, so I'm going to have a look and see what I've got left in the middle here. So I have got a little piece of teal, but it isn't very long, which is a shame. I can't really take this one all the way across there. That would be a bit too far, although you could. So I think, even just for the sake of this, I'm going to have to put a new little piece of teal in there. And sometimes this is what happens with Intarsia. You don't realise that you're going to need an extra piece, but you do. So for those 4 stitches, I'm just going to put my needle up there, grabbed a new piece of teal, pop it over and purl that stitch, and then I'm going to wrap it, that long teal float, twice around the white one, just to avoid any holes. And pick it up, and this is how you're going to add on any of these floats that you need. There. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that is the 4 teal stitches there, and then we've got 2 of the little tail with the white ones there. So I know I've got a really nice long white float here, so I'm going to take that float and twist it twice around the teal one, lift it up and work those 2 white stitches. 1, 2, and then I'm going to twist it around that new, where are we? There he is. That nice long teal float at the end, or that one there actually. Twist it round, 1, 2, pick up the teal, and then work those 2 stitches, which are, there's all 3 stitches, sorry. Then take the yarn around and work 1, 2, 3, got a stitch at the end. Now, for the rest of the reindeer working here, this section of antlers you can do with your ferrule technique. And so what we need to do for row 17 is to get ourselves all the way back over here so we can do this section here. Where we are here on row 17 is we're going to work in teal back here to work the antlers. And so I've only got a little bit of a teal float, so I'm actually going to grab half a ball of teal because I know that we're going to need it for this section here. So I'm going to attach a new float. So we're going to knit, pop that into the end. 1, 2, 3, and seeing as I'm at the end, whoopsie, I don't need to twist because I'm starting off with a new one attached here. So I'm going to knit 3 on the garter stitch, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 3, 6, 8 to get to where we're going to start this antler. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now, to work the antlers, we've got 1 white stitch here and just 3 coming along here. Now that doesn't seem too far away to me, so I'm actually going to use the white yarn I've got behind here and work this in Fair Isle. So the white yarn is here, and this is the white yarn that's attached to the ball. Because I'm changing now, I'm still going to twist before I start this. So I'm going to use 1 stitch here of white yarn. I'm going to twist it under and around. There. So it's just 1, and then we've got 3 teal. So I'm just going to take the teal and we're going to just go Fair Isle along here. 1, 2, 3. Pick up the white, just like when we've done our Fair Isle technique in the past. Grab the white yarn, knit the next one, pick up the teal, 2 more teals, pick up the white to knit the next one, and then pick up the teal again to work our 3 that takes us up to the garter stitch. See, 1, 2, 3, and then we have our 3 stitches for the garter stitch border. 1, 2, 3. Now I think this is interesting because it just illustrates how often you can mix up your techniques in one piece. So we've started off by working some Fair Isle down here, then some Intarsia here, and now we're going to work the antlers using Fair Isle again. Let's turn around and have a look. Now we're going to work row 18. It's a wrong side row, and if you look up here, it's just got 3 little bits of contrast colour in there. So we're going to use Fair Isle to do the rest of this. And so all that we really need is our teal and white that's attached to the ball. So if we carry on now, let's have a look. We're going to work from left to right, remembering this is a wrong side row, and here is 18 over here, 2 teal stitches and then 1 white, and then we'll follow along. So stretching out my swatch and making sure that all my yarns are untangled before I start. So I'm going to knit 3, which is my garter stitch border, bring the yarn around to the front. So we're going to knit 2 teal and then 1 white. So I'm going to purl, purl, of course I'm in purl because I'm on the purl side, and then because we've got this white yarn hanging down here and we're going to do this in a Fair Isle, I'm just going to pull it up and under, purl that white one, and then bring the yarn, the teal, under, and we have 3 teal stitches. 1, 2, 3. Then we have 1 white, so I'm going to bring the white yarn up, work 1 of those, and then we've got another 3 stitches and another white one. So I'm going to this time use the teal. 1, 2, 3, and then bring our white one across for there. Now, because we're going to work along this row here into quite a big chunk of teal, we've got a choice. We can use the teal strand that I have in the middle here, which is attached to the ball, or we could use the teal strand that's attached to my other little ball there. So it doesn't really matter which. I'm going to twist it though, just to make sure, because we're going into a big section and I don't want to have a hole. So whichever float you use, just make sure when you move from a ferrule section to an Intarsia section that you twist the yarn. So I'm going to work with this one. And this is all the way back to the end of the row. So we're going to work until 3 stitches before the garter stitch border. Yarn around to the back and knit those 3. Keep that nicely stretched out and turn around. Now, for the rest of this square, you just work in the same way. You've got this little bit which you can do with Fair Isle, and then just use the rest of the teal that you've got. You've got enough to be going backwards and forwards, and then when you've finished the image, you've got 4 rows of stockinette or stocking stitch, and then another 4 rows of garter stitch to give you that nice ridge at the top. And so that is how we work Intarsia with a bit of Fair Isle mixed in. Just follow your nose. If it's too big a jump to go from one, to have a float that reaches almost the length of the reindeer, then you know you need to be in Intarsia, and you need to twist the yarn every time you change colours to make sure you've got no holes. If you've got something that's a small area, you can use the Fair Isle technique so that you have floats running along the back. But as soon as that gets more solid, that's where you need your Intarsia bobbins to come into play. So that is how we mix the 2 techniques together.